Breathing in, I see myself as a flower. Breathing out, I feel fresh. Flower, fresh. Breathing in, I see myself as a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid. Mountain, solid.
Martin Luther King Jr. nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. Join me for a rare and enlightening conversation with the legendary author, peace activist, and Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. I wanted a place for people to go every Sunday to wake up. Thought-provoking.
Oh, you couldn't have said that better.
Eye-opening and inspiring.
This is my favorite thing to talk about.
This will lift you right on up. It's food for your soul.
Every single Sunday.
This is Super Soul Sunday. At 85, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh is one of the most influential spiritual leaders of our time. Thich Nhat Hanh, or Thai as his students call him, Thai means teacher, is author of more than 100 books. A copy of his Living Buddha, Living Christ never leaves my bedside. His spiritual journey began at the early age of 7, when he felt the calling to become a monk. But this monastic has always been active on the world stage. In the early 60s, horrified by the escalating civil war in Vietnam, Thai spearheaded one of the great nonviolent resistance movements of the 20th century. Martin Luther King Jr. took notice and spoke out against the Vietnam War for the first time at Nhat Hanh's urging, and later nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1982, Thai established a monastery and retreat center in France, where thousands of followers still flock every year. He lives there today, devoting his life to mindful meditation, helping people to be passionately present in the here and now. What a treat it was to finally meet Thich Nhat Hanh on one of his trips to New York City.
Well, thank you for the honor of talking to me today. Thank you for that. Already, just being in your presence for a short time, I feel less stressed than I did when I started out the day. Less stressed because you have such a peaceful aura that follows you and that you carry with yourself. Are you always this content and peaceful?
This is my training, this is my practice. And we try to live every moment like that, relax, dwelling peacefully in the present moment, and respond to event with compassion.
So in a moment where you are perhaps going to miss a plane or be late for an appointment or something is causing you to be stressful, you do what?
Go back to my breathing and try to be in that moment deeply, because there is a possibility to handle every kind of event. And the essential is to keep the peace in yourself.
So let's start with 1926, born in Vietnam. Any wonderful memory that you can share of your childhood, your favorite childhood memory?
One day I saw the picture of the Buddha on a Buddhist magazine, and he was sitting on the grass.
How old were you?
7, 8. And he was sitting on the grass, very peaceful, smiling, and I was impressed. Around me, people were not like that, so I had the desire to be someone like him. And I nourished that kind of desire until the age of 16, when I had the permission of my parents to go and ordain as a novice monk.
Did your parents encourage you, or were they reluctant for this to happen to you?
In the beginning, they were reluctant because they thought that the life of a monk is hard, difficult.
So this desire to become a monk started when you were 7 years old?
Yeah.
Yes. And what did that feel like? What did those urgings, that sense of this is what I must do or must become, what did that feel like?
I would not be happy if I cannot become a monk. That is the feeling. And we call it the beginner's mind.
Beginner's mind.
Yeah, the deep intention, the deepest desire that one person may have. And I can say that since that time until this day, this beginner's mind is still alive in me.
Let's go back to 1966 when you invited to speak at Cornell. And shortly after that, you weren't allowed back into your country and were exiled for 39 years. How did you deal with those feelings? First of all, what did you feel at the time?
I have left my community at home. I was like a bee taken out of the beehive.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't practice, and then I will dry up.
Did you feel sadness?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Did you allow yourself to feel the sadness?
In the first year of my being exiled, I dreamt almost every night of going home.
Can you explain to us, for people who don't understand, you were not allowed back in the country because you were, in essence, a peaceful warrior. You were practicing peace. They didn't appreciate your Buddhism. What was the reason you weren't allowed back in the country?
During the war, well, the warring parties all declared that they wanted to fight until the end. And those of us who tried to speak out against the war, to speak about reconciliation between brothers and brothers,
mm-hmm.
They did not want us to raise our voice.
So when you were a man without a country, you made another country, made a home in other countries. And the United States was one of them.
Yes.
How did you meet Martin Luther King?
In June the 1st, 65, I wrote him a letter explaining to him why the monks in Vietnam immolated themselves by fire. I said that it's not a suicide, because in a difficult situation like Vietnam, to make your voice heard is difficult. So sometimes we have to burn ourselves alive in order for our voice to be heard around. So that is out of compassion that you do that. That's the act of love and not of despair. And Jesus Christ died in the same spirit, out of love.
Being hung on the cross.
And exactly 1 year after, June the 1st, 66, I met him in Chicago. And we had that discussion about peace, freedom, and community. And we agreed that without a community, we cannot go very far.
How long was the discussion with him?
45 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, there was a press conference, and he came out very strongly against the war in Vietnam.
Do you think that was a result of your conversation with him?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we continue our work. And the last time I met him was in Geneva during a peace conference called La Paz and Interes.
There's an interesting story from that I heard, that you were running late. Can you tell me that story?
Martin Luther King invited me up for breakfast to talk over these issues again. And I was caught in a press conference downstairs. I came late. He kept the breakfast warm for me. And during the conversation, I was able to tell him that the people in Vietnam call him a bodhisattva, enlightened being, because of what he was doing for his people, his country, for the world.
And the fact that he was doing it non-violently.
Yes, that is the work of a bodhisattva, of a Buddha, of an enlightened person, always with compassion and non-violence.
Uh-huh.
And when I heard of his assassination, I could not believe it. I thought that the American people have produced king, but are not capable of preserving him. I was a little bit angry at that time.
Uh-huh.
I did not eat, I did not sleep. But my determination to continue the work, building the beloved community, continues always.
Always.
Yes.
Coming up, solving world problems with compassion.
That is the best way, the only way to remove
terrorism, or even difficulties between yourself and family members or friends.
Supercell Sunday will return in a moment.
What makes you laugh?
Anything that can help us laugh. If you talk to our young monastics, you find out.
You laugh? Do you laugh a lot?
Yes, we laugh, we smile a lot in our community.
You refer to, I can't remember which book, but you talk about deep listening also.
Deep listening is the kind of listening that can help relieve the suffering of the other person. We can call it compassionate listening. You listen with only one purpose: help him or her to empty his heart. And if you remember that you are helping him or her to suffer less, and then even if he say things full of wrong perceptions, full of bitterness, you are still capable to continue to listen with compassion, because you know that listening like that with compassion, you give him or her a chance to suffer less. If you want to help him or her to correct his perception, and then you wait for another time, but for the time being, you just listen with compassion and help him or her to suffer less. And 1 hour like that can bring transformation and healing.
So I love this idea of deep listening, because oftentimes when someone comes to you and they want to really vent, they want to purge whatever is going on inside them, people start talking and giving advice. So if you allow the person just to let whatever those feelings are to come out, and then at another time come back to them with your advice or your comments, you would experience a deeper healing. That's what you're saying.
Yes, the fear, the anger, and the despair is born on the ground of wrong perception. And we have wrong perceptions concerning ourselves and the other person. And that is the foundation for conflict and war and violence.
You've said that the only way we can begin to end war is due to communication between people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And we should be able to say like this: dear friends, dear people, I know that you suffer a lot. I have not understood enough of your difficulties and suffering. It's not our intention to make you suffer more. It is the opposite. So please tell us about your suffering, your difficulties. I'm eager to learn, to understand. You have to start like that, loving speech. And if you are honest, if you are true, they will open their heart and tell us. And then we practice compassionate, deep listening. And during the process of deep listening, we can learn so much about our own perception and their perception. Mm-hmm. And that is the best way, the only way to remove terrorism,
or even difficulties between yourself and family members or friends.
Yes.
And the principle is the same no matter the conflict.
Yes.
Terrorists, anti-terrorists, father and son,
right.
Yourself and your boss,
right.
Yourself and your children, your best friend.
Yes.
Is there ever a place for anger?
Anger is the energy which people use in order to act. But when you are angry, you are not lucid. And you might do wrong things. That is why compassion is a better energy. And the energy of compassion is very strong.
In our country and in other parts of the world, we're suffering an economic, or experiencing an economic downturn. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and because of the loss of their jobs, they feel a sense of suffering. There are other people who have said that this economic downturn, particularly in the United States, was needed to bring a sense of awareness to the materialism and the overspending and the excessiveness of our culture. How do you view the economic downturn?
I think we can always learn from our suffering. In the ash of suffering, a phoenix can be born. And that is why mindfulness helps us to look deeply into the difficulty, the suffering we have, and many positive will come out of that. It depends on our way of responding to the event. There are ways that can bring more suffering, that there are ways that can bring relief right away and hope, and it depends on our mind. And that is why mindfulness and concentration can help tremendously in bringing insight.
You've said in one of your most popular books, Living Buddha, Living Christ. What do you see the similarities between Buddha and Christ?
Jesus Christ is a Buddha of the West. And his teaching is also about understanding and compassion. In the gospel, there is also the teaching of living happily in the present moment. In the gospel, according to Matthew, is that don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. It's very clear. And give us the bread of today. We care about today, we live today. And if we know how to handle the present moment, we don't have to worry much about the future. If the present moment has peace and joy and happiness, and then the future will have also.
When we return, mindful living and relationships, the 4 little mantras that can make a big difference.
The first mantra is, darling, I'm here for you.
That's a lovely mantra, darling, I'm here for you.
And get ready to say cheese. Soul Pancake proves joy is contagious. We'll be right back.
The nature of Buddhism, as I understand, is to believe that we are all pure and radiant at our core. And yet we see around us so much evidence that people are not acting out of a sense of purity and radiance. How do we reconcile that?
Well, happiness and suffering, they support each other. They inter-are.
They inter-are.
Inter-are. To be is to inter-be. It's like the left and the right. If the left is not there, the right cannot be there. So the same thing is true with suffering and happiness. And good and evil, they inter-are also. In every one of us, there are good seeds and there are bad seeds.
And that's just the nature of being human.
Yeah. There is the lotus that grow out of the mud. We need the mud in order to make the lotus. You cannot grow lotus on marble. You have to grow it on the mud.
Mud.
So suffering is the kind of mud that we must be able to use in order to grow the flower of understanding and love.
Do you meditate every single day?
Not only every day, but every moment. While drinking, while talking, while writing, while